Alright, so I've done two videos on bootleg Chinese manga before, one of which being a recreation of Dragon Ball GT in manga form, and another being a continuation of the series after the final ending. And these continuations are always interesting because they're not released as fanfiction. Rather, these were meant to masquerade as the true continuations of the series. In China, the Hainan release of the Dragon Ball manga is the most popular, but there were actually dozens of other counterfeit bootleg releases all throughout the country. One of these was a release under the name The Little Japanese Monkey King, which would start publishing in 1990. The first 4 volumes of this release would stick to Toriyama's main story, starting from the 21st World Tournament all the way through the Muscle Tower arc. However, the next 2 books deviate from the source material and decide to start their own original stories. And to the point of these not being considered fanfiction, nothing on these volumes indicate that a new artist has taken the wheel, with the books crediting Akira Toriyama, which is obviously not true. Where in Toriyama's original story, Goku would have been heading to West City to fix his Dragon Radar, the unofficial continuation instead has him heading west into Demon Country to continue his search for the Dragon Balls. The first portion of this is only half original, lifting much of its story from Dragon Ball episode 81, which is a filler episode under the name Goku Goes to Demon Land. Here, Goku basically has to save a princess who is taken hostage into Demon Country, though this recreation skips a lot of the backstory and goes straight into Goku's arrival at the gate of the Demon Realm. Even though this takes from episode 81, it's not a simple redraw of frames from the show. In fact, most panels seem completely original, and some characters are even changed, like Mera being drawn a bit younger and less hostile. The fanfiction really starts to stick out in the second section of this arc though, with Goku meeting a couple of heroes that help him rescue the princess. These characters seem to be derived from another Chinese folk story, Swordsman of the Mountain of Shu, in the same way that Goku's character is from Journey to the West. And this is hammered in with a fight scene where Goku and one of the heroes that can ride on a sword mistake each other for subjects of the Demon King. Character design here is probably the biggest red flag that this is not an Akira Toriyama work. Dragon Ball is steeped in Chinese inspiration, with Akira Toriyama actually traveling to China in order to prepare himself for the series. However, Toriyama was also very inspired by a lot of the American movies that he would watch, and so Dragon Ball in the Dragon World itself, much like Dr. Slump, is meant to be stylistically a global adventure. And thus, the characters that get introduced are usually pretty diverse and clearly based on other countries, whether that's from places like Russia or India or Africa. This artist sticks out because the characters that get introduced are much more Asian in design, which isn't a knock on the arts or anything, it's just something that sticks out and is a very easy way to differentiate him from Toriyama's work. Long story short though, Goku ends up befriending the swordsman, fighting the mysterious Demon King, and saving the princess. About 100 pages in though, the story shifts. Here, Goku takes a break from his search for the Dragon Balls only to get ambushed by a robot, which ultimately knocks him out and steals his Dragon Ball. Goku is then found by Arale from Dr. Slump and takes him to Penguin Village to recover. In some ways, we are matching the cadence of the original manga, as this lines up with Goku getting attacked by General Blue and dropping him into Penguin Village in the original story by Toriyama. As Goku becomes acquainted with Arale's family, the same robot steals Dr. Senbei's wife Midori, who is wearing a Dragon Ball. We then learn that Dr. Mashiroto, who is the main recurring antagonist of the Dr. Slump series, has teamed up with the Demon King from the last arc to find the 8th Dragon Ball and take over the world. The author of this continuation clearly has knowledge of the franchise beyond what had been published in their limited Dragon Ball release, as we get to see Kami, a character who wouldn't be introduced until 2 arcs later, introduce the concept of a special 8th Dragon Ball. And I will say there are some entertaining moments, like Goku training with the Gachon Angels and Senbei turning into Robocop. Oh, and at some point Turbo transforms into the Puff Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. But otherwise, this story is a very basic rescue plot, something I could see being used for a crossover movie or something. The arc is called Battle of the Palace of Ecstasy because they eventually find their way in this giant maze castle where Each level is kind of a different theme, like a video game. And honestly, it's nothing worth talking about other than Goku getting turned into a gingerbread cookie for some reason after hitting the witch from Hansel and Gretel in the jaw. For what kind of treats itself as a Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball crossover, I was actually surprised by how little of a role Arale actually plays in the story too, only really being used for some occasional side comedy. She also suits into a My Neighbor Totoro outfit and just never takes the suit off. I mean, she ends the arc with it on. Turbo and Sinbei are basically the main Slump characters here. The plot of the final volume starts to become incoherent really quickly though, with important plot beats just straight up being ignored, and now new characters are appearing out of nowhere with no explanation. In this volume, Goku eventually gets help from a mysterious cloaked figure that we never hear from again and is able to save the Slump crew, and from there he goes on for another 100 pages of adventure to find an angel egg, which basically just leads him down a gauntlet of fights before the book ends and nothing is resolved. I will say the artist in question does do a decent job of mimicking Toriyama's art style. A lot of fanfiction tends to focus on the Dragon Ball Z and GT era art with a focus on extreme action. So something that's more focused on the adventure aspect is pretty unique. But really, I don't think you're getting much out of reading this. At its best, it's just expanding on an already pretty decent filler episode, and at its worst, it's mind-numbing adventure after adventure that lacks any real sense of plot. It just feels like stuff happening just so that Goku can keep doing stuff. I think this manga gives an alternate reality glimpse at what I think Toriyama really wants to avoid, a world where Dragon Ball is just an endless and formulaic cycle of Goku traveling to find the Dragon Balls and meeting friends along the way. By having Goku grow up and start a family, he was able to fundamentally change the dynamic of the series and really give it a meaningful sense of progression. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Also, special thanks to VonDBZ on Twitter for helping me track this manga down. This is the third time I've done a video on some of these Chinese bootlegs, and trust me, there are a lot more that I can talk about. If you're interested in hearing more about these, let me know, and make sure to like and subscribe. Alright, bye.